Thank you, Tim, and most importantly, thank you all for being here. It's been an incredible season. All 30 teams and players, just so much fantastic basketball throughout the year. Let me begin also by congratulating the Toronto Raptors and the Oklahoma City Thunder for two fantastic conference finals. Having been there with these teams all season, and I know there's a lot of people in the back of the room here from the two teams that are now still playing. It's hard to underestimate the effort that's required. And I know many of you in this room began with the league in preseason, which started September 26th this year. So it's an incredible year. It's in terms of maintaining your health, both physically, mentally, for the teams, for the coaches, for the front office. So it's an incredible accomplishment. And let me say again to Oklahoma City Thunder and the Toronto Raptor, fantastic job. Now for these two organizations, of course it is organizations, and let me begin with the Golden State Warriors with Joe Lacob and Peter Guber. Just two fantastic owners. Joe is the governor of the team. He's become very involved in league matters. He does a lot on behalf of the league. I want to commend him for that. And Peter Guber is a fantastic partner of his. Bob Myers does a fantastic job as the general manager. Rick Welts as the president of the team. And then Steve Kerr, what more can I say, coach of the year. Together with Luke Walton this year, they just put on just a great show throughout the year. And the 73-win season, of course, will be one that will be tough to beat, and it's going to be in the record books for a while. So just a really enjoyable season. The Cleveland Cavaliers, Dan Gilbert, again, a tremendous owner of that organization, very involved in league matters, someone I talk to on a regular basis. His general manager, Griff, does also a fantastic job in this league, and Ty Lue came in this season, obviously went from being associate head coach to head coach under difficult circumstances, but my hat's off to him with what he's done with this team. So congrats to all those folks. In terms of the game, it has never been better. It's a fantastic time to be a basketball fan. It's a fantastic time to be an NBA fan. It just seems like the game is being reinvented. I don't know how else to say it. It seems like both teams are transforming the game, the way we're seeing it played, the athleticism of these players. You have superstar players who can play 5 different positions. You have players like, for example, Steph Curry, who not only broke his own three-point record. What people were saying last year is maybe we'd have 300 made three-point shots this year. Of course, he busted through 300, and he ended up with 402 three-point made shots for the regular season. I was thinking about it in some ways. Maybe that's like when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. It's something that just a few years ago people thought wouldn't be done. And the reason I'm comparing him to Roger Bannister is that when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, it wasn't something that then nobody touched for another 20 years. Shortly thereafter, others broke that barrier. And my sense is that Steph and together with Clay, what they're doing when it comes to three-point shooting, they've overcome a psychological barrier, I think, for a lot of players who just never thought the kind of shots they would make were possible. And when you see Steph, especially when you see him that far behind the three-point line, where on a regular basis he's making 30-footers and making shots and requiring defenses to cover him in ways that they're not used to covering players, it changes the whole dynamic of our game. And I'd say it's just incredibly exciting. And same thing for the Cavaliers. I think what LeBron James is doing, his 6th finals in a row, I think what he, from a physical standpoint, is able to do, just his size, his strength, his speed. Again, I think this is just a delight for basketball fans everywhere. And let me just conclude before I answer your questions by saying, sort of the fan in me can't wait for it to get started. And I'm anticipating a fantastic finals as a culmination to what's just been a wonderful season. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
We'll start here in row 2 in the middle, please.
Commissioner Ryan Leong, the Associated Press Radio Network. This has been a showcase not only for the Warriors, but the city of Oakland, which usually in the Bay Area, when you think of the 3 Bay Area cities, Oakland usually last on that list. What's the league's thought on the possibility still of the Warriors' relocation to San Francisco and trying to keep the team here in Oakland, where they have a tremendous fan base?
Here I'm not from the Bay Area, so I can't speak to sort of the relative importance of the various cities out here. All I can say is I'm very supportive of Joe and Peter and Rick Welts and their desire to move the franchise to San Francisco. I'm pleased it would remain in the Bay Area. I know they've had fantastic support here from Oakland. I don't think there's any doubt that they need a new arena in this market. And again, the project has been presented to me several times in San Francisco, and it seems like it will be, yet again, the best of its kind. And I'm hugely favorable. I'm very supportive of them doing it.
Fifth row on the right, Steve.
Steve Ashburner, NBA.com. Adam, historically, when players have sort of sent a message to the game that they have caught up with it and maybe even broken through it, like you talk about with Steph, whether it's George Mikan, Wilt Chamberlain, whatever, the game responds, the league responds and makes rule changes, things like that. Do you foresee this league looking at the depth of the three-point line, any changes in the court dimensions, anything at all?
Not anytime soon. And largely because when we've changed the rules in the past, and much of that happened before my time in the game, it was because there was a view that a particular player, because of his skill, had, frankly, an unfair advantage over other players. And it made the game either less enjoyable, less competitive, less aesthetically pleasing. I think in this case, as I said, this is the best basketball many of us have experienced in our lifetimes. And I think that in some ways, Steph's three-point shooting becomes an equalizer, especially given the amount of travel I do outside the United States. To me, what's happening with Steph, and it's not just young boys but young girls as well, while he's by no means small relative to regular-sized folks, by NBA standards, he's a little bit undersized. He's smaller than the average player in this league. He's not particularly physically overwhelming. And I think it broadens the pool in many ways of potential players in this league. And I think even with his three-point shooting, what it's demonstrating is that there's a whole, for a class of young people playing the game who can at least dream that they can potentially do what he can do. You can't dream that you're going to be 7 feet tall, but on the other hand, you can work at it and become a fantastic competitor on the floor. So we're always looking at things, and one of the things the competition committee does over the summer is sits back and spends a lot of time looking at trends in the league, shooting trends, the way defenses are played, and the business side too, how fans are reacting to it. So I'd only say that I don't think any change is necessary right now. We'll continue to look at it. And it's also, incidentally, in fairness to Steph and to Clay to a certain degree, it's not clear whether they may be aberrational. We may be looking back in 10 years from now and saying, no one else can do what they can do. My hunch is that won't be the case, that maybe what Steph is demonstrating, he's just so good that no one else can touch him, but we'll see. And so, right now at least, I think the game is just fantastic in its current state.
Sixth row on the left. Jeff?
Jeff Zilgate, USA Today. Adam, we've seen in the playoffs, especially the Western Conference Finals, some late kicks or flailing kicks. What were you thinking when you saw those plays? Would you like to see a defined penalty? And what are you charging the competition committee with looking at in regard to that play?
So in terms of the flailing, and we're seeing a lot more leg kicks and frankly players flailing their arms as well, and it's clear what they're doing. They're trying to sell calls. They're trying to make contact. They're trying to demonstrate that they're getting fouled on particular players. It's not something new in the league, but as we track it, it's becoming more prevalent. And so it's not something we want to see. In terms of flagrant fouls and potential suspensions, one of the things we look at is the intent of the players. Obviously, it's very difficult to discern intent, and we want to find a way to discourage players from flailing, because whether or not they're intentionally, in the case of Draymond Green, just to speak to it directly, whether or not he's intentionally was trying to connect the Steven Adams groin, the fact is he certainly had the intent to make physical contact with the defender. And it may be that we have to take a fresh look at that and draw a brighter line in terms of what's permitted, that we do a better job disincentivizing players from any potential basketball move or non-basketball move that could result in injuring another competitor. So it is something that we've talked a lot about in the last few weeks. We've been talking about it throughout the season, obviously a very controversial play that you just mentioned, and it's on the agenda for the competition committee when we meet this summer.
Fourth row in the middle. Eric?
Eric Pincus, Basketball Insiders. Adam, can you talk to us about the future? You're so happy about where the product is now. With the league and the players union able to opt out of the collective bargaining agreement, and with the salary cap jumping up the next couple of years, are you comfortable, is the league comfortable where salaries are going for individual players? And what do we have to look forward to in the next year?
Well, you know, as you mentioned, we are in the midst of a 10-year collective bargaining agreement, but in year 6 next year, either side has the opportunity to opt out of the agreement. And so because of that, it's no secret we've been engaged in discussions with the Players Association. Both we and the Players Association have agreed, as you all know, that we won't share what we're talking about behind closed doors with the public. But I'd only say I remain optimistic. I think there are aspects of the collective bargaining agreement that both sides would like to see addressed, and we're engaged in constructive discussions over how we can find ways to make the system even better. And I'd only say that there's 2 critical aspects of the system. One is the macro financials of the system, and that is measured by the league in terms of profitability, and for the players, of course, their individual salaries and what the players can make on a macro basis, but just as importantly, the competitive issues. And I think creating a system that allows every team, I'd say, equality of an equal opportunity to compete for championships. I think we're never going to have NFL-style parity in this league. It's just the nature of this league that certain players are so good that on teams, those teams are likely almost automatically, if that player remains healthy, to become playoff teams, and especially mixed with other great players. But you know, having said that, there are still additional things we think we can do that will further encourage you know, a strong competition throughout the league. And one fantastic trend I believe we're seeing in the league, and you saw it with the Western Conference Finals, that Oklahoma City, as the smallest market in the league, has the exact same ability to put together a fantastic team and create culture just like a team from the Bay Area, and just in the same way that Cleveland does with the Toronto team. And I think that was one of our goals in the last collective bargaining agreement. And I think what also players are responding, and players are attracted to strong cultures, and players are attracted to situations where they see an opportunity to win, and also recognize that all the economic benefits follow from that as well, rather than the economic benefits coming from a particular market or the fact that a market might be larger than another one.
Second row on your right.